Greetings everybody, thanks for stopping by this Marvel Avengers Alliance Redux video on YouTube. I'm Napalm Dawn and the channel is G4G, Games for Gamers. And today we're going to take a look at a Thursday night fight video that I have just finished designing about 30 seconds ago. So during the streams lately, I've been mentioning that I was going to do a Thursday night fight of PvP on the cheap. In other words, PvP that should be attainable simply by farming, whether it be a early spec ops or a story mission. And today we're going to go ahead and do that. This can double up as also a infiltrator season video, as we have infiltrator B-dubs over there, Black Widow, we have infiltrator Hawkeye, and my agent is running the Agent 19 uniform for the infiltrator PvP season. You can just switch that to an infiltrator suit. We have the Marksman spotter over here, the custom Goblin glider, the custom possessed pistol, and a digital painter. These are all things you do not have to spend even silver on. You just have to farm them. The target painter comes from 1.7.2. The custom possessed pistol is the mission with the hood. The custom goblin glider is the let us see which one that is. That one is 1.7.3. It is the headshot mission, not to be confused with, of course, the one that we would get later in Season 2, the gaseous glider. This is the custom version. There is, of course, the regular version. The custom possessed pistol, I'll go ahead and point that one out directly. That comes from 1.8.5. And the Marksman spotter comes from the Avengers side, excuse me, the X-Men side of the Avengers versus X-Men Spec Ops, which is the third one. And the target painter, gotta go ahead and find that one. I don't think it is a store item. I think it is a story mode drop. 1.7.2. So with the exception of the Marksman spotter, which comes from a Spec Ops, most of this gear is available relatively early on. The Marksman spotter helps set up these two items to do really, really good damage, as does the target painter, and it's also a good setup for Hawkeye, who loves that kind of targeted attack. We're going to pick Valkyrie first because we know she could potentially protect people when they get low. The Marksman spotter has a bit of a bug where it adds the next click of damage onto the actual Marksman spotter. My plan is not to really abuse that bug, however, it's going to happen simply because we picked that piece of gear. You know, it's funny, with the agent holding that gun or that gadget in his hand, it actually looks like it is a almost nearly a legitimate gun. Pinpoint target. Now, I do believe some weirdness can happen if pinpoint... Actually, no, I want a single target. I want to get the infiltrator reflexes. Really nice overkill. You know, this is a early game team, and yet here it is standing up to essentially what is PvP Season 10's roster, and it's kind of making mincemeat of it. The custom Goblin glider, you probably want to use only if you see a flyer in PvP. Because if you have the possessed pistol, I believe it's going to do more damage, but we'll take a look. Yes, the top end, it's okay. That's a little bit weird. The low end is higher on the Goblin glider at 7.6k, but the custom possessed pistol has a higher top end as 12.6 compared to 9.1. Very interesting. We will go for Iron Patriot. So you'll see it puts out the debuff, and then the moment I click the possessed pistol, it does the possessed pistol's damage, which then I can still use the possessed pistol. So it is essentially whatever weapon you pick after that gadget then winds up doing the damage of the weapon that you pick. So essentially that weapon is doing its damage twice. It's as if the weapon had a follow-up. A lot of people do know this particular interaction and will use the gadget similar to what we're seeing here and run it with like the Roar of the North or the Coulsons. I can't blame you for doing it. It will speed up farming and PvP. And to be fair, we're not doing that setup in this video. We're trying to use the targeted status or the pinpoint status so that Hawkeye gets some additional benefits there. Target painter. See, now when my agent's turn expires the way that it is over there, it actually works out because then you don't get the double damage. However, I am losing a full turn to a quick action that I'm not supposed to be losing the rest of my turn to. Alright, so 2-0 and really making mincemeat out of this stuff over here. Let me check out my daily spinner. Mystic munitions, those are pretty cool. Bauxite helmet, that is an armory item, but I think that can actually be used. I think it has like a psychic protection if I remember correctly. Alright, so 2-0, pretty easy so far. Sometimes people will notice that I have very weird stats in PvP. My damage is high and my hit points are high. That is because in the earlier closed betas, the armory was available and my armory does have some stuff in it. Well, the access to the armory has been taken out of this closed beta. So the thing is, I can't get into the armory to take stuff out and make it look like how you guys will do in your versions of it. It's no particular big deal. The balance of what my team looks like compared to what the enemy teams look like, it's still going to be the same. It's just higher numbers, but the scaling is essentially the same. Alright, once again, we're going to go for rescue, but this time I'm actually going to try a stun arrow. Let's see what Iron Patriot does. Did a 9-1. Very interesting. Aiming for him because he is lower. Now this is actually a good team for me to use the Goblin Glider. Rescue. I'm going to pass my turn until my agent because I would like to see what kind of damage the glider's going to do. Now, in a perfect world, I would use either the painter or the spotter to soften her up a little bit just to get the targeted or the weak point. We know I'm going to lose my turn if I do that, so I'm just going to use the glider. You might think, okay, Napalm, that doesn't look that great, but that was 10k as a white hit. So no, it was not some big flashy one-shot or anything like that. But considering that attack didn't crit, that's still very, very high damage for just a single white hit. Okay, 3-0. Let's go ahead and see if we can get an easy 4. We know the agent tanks. So I'm going to go ahead and pick him, and I'm going to lower His stats there with the custom possessed pistol. That is a counter from the MAA Trigger Man. Rescue protects, which is not necessarily bad for my team full of infiltrators over here. Now, flying kick would be great in this circumstance. It would take away her replicating shields, because that is a buff removal. However, buff removal is not working in 618. Well, Agent Bridget Rocks went in there. Took it like a champ because both of them were protecting, and since I picked rescue, the other one joined in. All right. Let's go ahead and use that on rescue. I'm going to wind up losing my turn, but it is a setup for Hawkeye, who just straight up kills her. I could have done the kick again because we know the kick would have done some massive damage, but I wanted to see some more Goblin Glider. Yeah. This is reminding me how disappointing the Goblin Glider is at times. Yeah, again, it did solid damage and it didn't crit, and that's still relatively high white damage. But when you see the fact that I'm running the possessed pistol right alongside of it, and it's going to do more damage, the Goblin Glider, even against flyers, I just think it isn't there. I think we are coasting on its old reputation of being very, very solid and also being very solid against flyers. But to be honest, it's just not wetting my whistle. I feel like sticking with the custom possessed pistol as my damage dealer would be much better. Wolverine is lower. I could get my infiltrator reflexes off of the agent. However, Wolverine is a pain with the bleeds and he is lower. I want to see if I can push him into a critical status and get him killed before his next attack, where he'll, of course, regen health. I know this agent has enough of that set so that the Scourging Gaze will go ahead and generalize me when it goes off. Hawkeye, do we open up with the AoE and hope that he gets Wolverine dead along with hitting everybody else? Do we play it fast and loose, or do we play it conservative and go directly for him? Well, oh, he got stunned. That's right. Okay, well, then in that case, goodbye, Wolverine. We need to ensure your death. Agent, get the infiltrator bonus going, and huge hit. If the team can continue to make... I gotta do it on the agent. If the team has the capability of bringing life or breathing life back into the Avengers somehow, whether it be through ISOs or uniforms in the future, somewhere in Season 3, or obviously not PvP seasons, they reward characters. But if the story development team has ways of breathing some life back into these Avengers, they honestly aren't that bad. You know, I've always loved Mark 42. I think the missile bombardment is a major upgrade for this uniform. And yeah, you can eventually get into the Hulkbuster one. The thing is, I don't really remember the Hulkbuster one that well, other than the transition to the big suit. I just, yeah, again, you do get the burning, but you don't get the bleeding. You have open wound. I mean, Iron Man overall is solid, especially if you can start spamming unibeams. These two, you just saw how good they are. Hawkeye is always fun when he starts firing off arrows. You could use them for Spider-Man Noir and Hogun and Union Jack. Black Widow's kick is still huge damage, one of the best crit modifiers in the game. Cap, other than Steve Rogers, I think Cap does kind of get outshined and never really comes back. I think you can kind of outgrow Cap. Hulk, pretty solid, and he has some other uniforms like Gray and World War II that keep him relevant, and also he starts getting some EISOs later that aren't too bad. Thor, especially Mighty Thor, is really good, so I think it isn't too tough to keep the Avengers in the meta, keep them noteworthy a little bit. But I do think they need some love. When you look at a Spitfire and a Cloak and Dagger and a Pfizer Hussein and a Ronin, obviously they can't stack up at all. But I think you can bring them back to the tail edge of like, hey, these guys are pretty good. You're not going to get the middle. You're not going to get the upper echelons of PvP and even farming PvE. But I think you can make them relatively decent with just a little bit of work. I think you power creep them out, and then when the power creep expires, you kind of forget about them, so you never really look at them again. But I think it could be done. And honestly, who doesn't love Heroic Age Hawkeye? Everybody loves him, and especially when Kate comes around later on, he and Kate make for an interesting duo. So there you go, guys. There is PvP on the cheap. 2 quick actions, although only one of them actually acts as a quick action. The custom Goblin glider, the possessed pistol. Obviously, there's even better things out there like the Power 4, but it's bugged, so why bother? I'm not going to run it in this video because it doesn't do it. The custom Magneto shield is, of course, fantastic when it works. It doesn't work very well. It's very buggy. It slows the game down when the shield pops. The custom Goblin glider, I think you can take it out and put in something better, especially if you want to think of your possessed pistol as your heavy hitter. Maybe if there was like potentially healing gadgets over here where the heal actually worked, or maybe a defensive counter item where you equip it in case you get attacked, like maybe say the custom Grecian Sai, and then you always are using the pistol as your damage dealer. That could also work. If we were talking about the 5th slot, then of course the world is wide open to you. Hell, you can slap in the custom only for killing there, the Kofik, if you wanted to do some really big damage with an Emma Frost kind of psychic tap. So there you go. There is PvP on the cheap and also a valid Infiltrator season team. Thanks a lot, guys. I will see you tomorrow on Twitch. Probably. I'm getting a dash cam installed on my car tomorrow, and somewhere around the time frame of when I'm doing the stream, I might have to go pick it up, but we'll see. Take care, everybody.